Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Cameron Costa. Here's what's coming up today on Squawk Pod. Tariffs loom. A little further off, though, for Canada and Mexico.
The all-important question, what just happened?
In China, the CCP has already fired back. Our own Eunice Yoon reports from Beijing.
This move today is really seen as a way for China to gain leverage on President Trump if there is indeed some sort of larger trade deal.
And how could President Trump's executive order affect Amazon? Amazon Prime VP Jamil Ghani says whatever changes are coming for Chinese-made goods sold globally, Amazon will be ready.
We're going to do what's necessary in order to minimize disruption for customers.
Plus, Cathie Wood, the noted tech investor and Tesla bull, on market opportunities she's seeing now.
I think the most underappreciated application of AI is healthcare.
It's Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, and Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Mike Santoli and Steve Liesman. Joe and Andrew are both out today. Guys, it's good to see both of you.
Morning. Good to be here.
Thank you. Good to be here with you. Let's take a look.
Tariffs are very powerful, both economically and in getting everything else you want. Tariffs for us, nobody can compete with us because we're the pot of gold. But if we don't keep winning and keep doing well, we won't be the pot of gold, and then tariffs won't be so good for us.
Declines across the board for all of the major averages yesterday, but those declines were paired pretty massively through the course of the day. We were talking about declines of something like 48 points or 46 points for the S&P 500, the Dow down to just 123 at the end of the session, the NASDAQ down by a couple hundred points versus what we had seen in the pre-market.
Yeah, we were all down about 1.5% on the S&P 500, even more than that. Just about an hour after the close, you got the news perhaps that there was going to be a deferral of the Mexican tariffs, and immediately we rallied more than 1% intraday. Right. So the market was very alert to the possibility that this is going to swing in both directions based on headlines. You know, yesterday when I was talking to you at 8 a.m., I said, it's kind of a muted response initially pre-market because everyone recognizes that there's a fluid situation. So that's how the market traded. Bond market rallied initially, and then yields kind of ticked higher again. You got a strong ISM number in there too, so that got obscured. So essentially the market is waiting for the next beat in this tune, but not really sure exactly whether they want to front run it.
Right, we'll see. 30 days was the reprieve that was given. We did see the 10% tariffs kick in for China, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But you can see how it's been playing out in the Treasury market. The 10-year right now yielding 4.56, the 2-years at 4.25. The Mexican peso and the Canadian dollar both rebounding. Bitcoin is back at about 98,000, almost 99,000, 98,943. It's down about 2.6%, but we had seen it as high as 105,000 before we saw all of this concern about the tariffs and the pressures that put on the market.
And as low as 92 or 93 yesterday morning. So obviously this is one of the kind of sentiment gauges that the dial gets turned pretty quickly. New overnight, President Trump's 10% tariff on China took effect, and China announced retaliatory measures. Eunice Yoon joins us now from Beijing to detail those. Hello, Eunice.
Hey, guys. Well, China raised the stakes. It announced a raft of countermeasures, 10 to 15% tariffs on energy imports, farm gear, and trucks, export curbs on tungsten and other rare metals, an antitrust probe on Google, and then blacklisting PVH, which is the owner of the Tommy Hilfiger brand and Calvin Klein brand, as well as genetics company Illumina. Now, the impact of each measure varies. It is overall, though, relatively modest. For example, the U.S. accounts for 5.4% of China's LNG purchases. The Google search engine is blocked here. U.S. companies also ship a very limited number of farm equipment as well as big engine sedans to China. Even so, this move today is really seen as a way for China to gain leverage on President Trump if there is indeed some sort of larger trade deal.
And Eunice, that clearly seems to be the takeaway that, as you say, these are relatively, measured and selective measures that China has put on here. What do we think the terms of any negotiation might be? Obviously, the sort of cover for the proposed Mexico and Canada tariffs were mostly about fentanyl at the border. Is that going to be where things come together here? Is there something more that we're going to have to be mindful of?
Well, I think that it looks as though the discussions with the Mexican president as well as the Canadian, Canada's Justin Trudeau, were mainly about fentanyl. And so from China's perspective, they've already said again today that fentanyl is the U.S.'s problem. And I think what you're seeing is that unlike Canada and Mexico, China does not feel that it is in a position, and the CCP as well as President Xi Jinping is not in a position to really look as though they are caving in to the West. They are loath to that. They want to make sure that President Xi looks as though he is always in control in any discussion with President Trump. So a lot of these measures that we're seeing now, I would think would appear to be a way for China to leverage against President Trump in any discussion for a larger economic bargain.
Eunice, why these companies that are kind of being singled out? It doesn't make sense, at least from our perspective. Is there anything you can see for making rhyme or reason of why those companies were selected?
I think that it's probably because they don't actually have that much business here. They're not, it's not super meaningful. I mean, for Google, for example, like I said, that there is no search engine here for Google. They have 1% of global sales in China, so there is some business here. But for a PVH, we've already seen that investigation announced. Illumina is a new one, but they have a relatively small business here, though they have been growing. So we could see that they are selecting companies that have some exposure here, but wouldn't necessarily rock the boat, but still would provide a way for China to be able to say, well, I'll allow some, more sales of one particular item or another if you, give in on something else that preferably that China would want to see from the United States, such as a lifting of export controls or to the like.
Eunice, I know this is a hard question to answer, but can you tell me, after what just happened with Canada and Mexico, does President Trump look stronger, weaker, or about the same to the leaders in China? Or is it a very different situation in that this is China and the politics are just so different domestically here in the United States?
Well, I think it's probably about the same. My guess is that from what we saw here and the reaction generally here to the 10% tariff, it was really one of relief for the most part from manufacturers who we spoke to, but also potentially from the way the government was reacting, because this looks as though it's a friendlier White House to the Chinese. That you saw that President Xi and President Trump had a conversation, that the Chinese were invited to the inauguration, so the VP was meeting with J.D. Vance, so overall it's been kind of friendly. And then when it was 10%, it was seen as, well, wow, that's pretty good. It wasn't the 60% that was promised on the campaign trail, and so I don't necessarily think that anything really changed from this particular announcement.
All right, Eunice, we will see what changes are to come. Appreciate the update. Thank you.
Okay, now for a look at where things stand with Trump's tariffs on Mexico and Canada. And for the answer to the all-important question, what just happened? We turn to Megan Cassella in Washington. Megan.
That is the question this morning, Steve. Good morning. Both countries, both Canada and Mexico, getting at least a temporary reprieve from a trade fight after both struck deals with Trump yesterday to delay their tariffs by at least 30 days. So first, Mexico. This one came together pretty quickly yesterday after Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she pledged to send 10,000 troops to the southern border to focus on fentanyl specifically. Trump agreed then to delay tariffs until March 4th and says that Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, and Howard Lutnick will continue negotiations in the meantime. He had a little bit of a trickier time with Canada. Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau spoke twice yesterday, and it wasn't until that second call later in the afternoon that Trump agreed to the delay. That came after Trudeau committed to carrying out a $1.3 billion border security plan, and to appoint a fentanyl czar. But guys, really two questions right now. One is what Trump really got out of this. Many of these commitments appeared to already be in the works well before these executive orders on the tariffs existed. And the other is whether Trump will want to see any additional action in order to postpone the tariffs further, what that will look like, and whether we might all be back here on the brink of a trade war again a month from now. Guys.
Megan, there's a TikTok in the Journal that tries to go through things, and I guess one of the questions that investors may have is, did the aides around President Trump, were they able to bring him down from where he wanted to be? Are there people around the president now that was part of the characteristics of the first term that were people saying, well, Mr. President, maybe you want to do a little bit less than that?
I think we're still learning about that. What I can say is there's a lot of speculation and some thinking that Scott Bessent really played a role over the weekend in trying to temper Trump. Remember, on Friday, the White House was telling us that the tariffs would take effect on Saturday. They would start getting collected on Saturday. Then, obviously, we didn't see any language until Saturday evening. And once we got that, it said they were meant to take effect Tuesday night. So even that little bit of a delay there, it does appear that somebody had some influence on him and agreed to, or made him agree to postpone things just a little bit. But what I will also say is that Trump is a really firm believer that nobody gives up something for nothing, and that something has to be on the table. Some sort of a punitive tariff or whatever else it might be has to be on the table in order for anyone to agree to anything. And by going through this news cycle, even if some of these accomplishments or agreements might be a little bit recycled, Trump can now tout them and say, look what I did, whether he wanted to impose the tariffs anyway or not.
Look, I think part of it is just from watching his first administration, seeing what he goes through. This is his way of doing business. This is how he goes about things. It's how he will get to other negotiating positions. He wants to set the stage very early, and he's also made a big deal about saying promises made, promises kept. He promised on the campaign trail that he was going to raise tariffs, and this was a huge part of it, and probably looking like he wants to deliver within weeks of being in office as part of it, too.
Becky, yesterday...
Absolutely. A lot of this is really reminiscent of that first term. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to say yesterday, Becky and I had a conversation about this idea of whether or not he meant to do permanent tariffs, and you were kind of in the temporary camp, and you ended up being right. I'm still not sure.
I don't know where we'll be in 30 days, but when we spoke with Kevin Hassett yesterday, that changed my entire position on what was happening.
But after our conversation, somebody was listening, a key executive who was hanging around the White House. And this executive went to the White House officials with that question. Are these permanent and temporary? And the White House folks couldn't really answer.
Yes is the answer.
Yes is the answer. So I don't know. I guess, Megan, if you're still there, that's really the question that people have. Is a 30-day reprieve? Are we right? I feel like I was on a roller coaster ride here. And imagine if you were the parts supplier of a guy with a business in Canada.
Well, I think that's the question. Look, to me, it's getting my mental abilities back to where we were 4 years ago and remembering how this president operates and trying to flow with the news flow like that. My question would be, how does that impact corporate America? What decisions do they make? The other thing I will say is Lori and LaRocca has been doing some reporting on this, just saying that shipping companies and any of the companies that are talking about doing orders right now from China, everybody's putting in these new clauses that basically say, if there are tariffs that are put into play, all of this is renegotiable, the prices on these things.
It just seems like a difficult way to run a railroad. But I was thinking something that we need Joe back to interpret Trump. I do Powell. Every eyebrow he moves, I understand.
Yeah.
But Trump, we need Joe. Joe's going to be back soon.
Yes, he's going to be back very soon.
We need Joe back.
And I think that is part of the game, is figuring out the interpretation. And that's why it's so valuable to have these guests on from the White House, because they're coming and they're messaging and they're sending a message.
And you're interpreting it.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
Megan, thank you very much.
Tease will be next.
Coming up, the woman Reddit traders called Aunt Cathie. ARK Invest's forward-thinking tech investor Cathie Wood. Tech is converging. Even humanoid robots? Not far off, she says.
We certainly think with Tesla, Robotaxi is this year. I know that Elon's been saying that it was going to be just around the corner for the past 6 or 7 years, and we thought it would be sooner, but it is here. That is a huge opportunity.
Squawk Pod will be right back. This is Squawk Pod.
You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick along with Mike Santoli and Steve Liesman. Joe and Andrew are off today.
ARK Invest is out with its big ideas of 2025. There are 11, all related to technology. Joining us now with more on her 2025 strategy and how tech could perhaps get caught in the crossfire of President Trump's trade moves, Cathie Wood, CEO and CIO of ARK Invest. Welcome, Cathie. Good to see you. I guess I would start by saying, for one thing, you know, the market has seemed pretty captivated by a lot of these disruptive technology themes, whether it's the AI infrastructure build out. Obviously, crypto has had an incredible run. Now, Tesla naturally had been on a roll in terms of excitement about autonomy and robotics. So what do you feel is left? What are the ripe ideas that you would like to be positioning for at this point?
Well, I think that the AI movement has just begun. And, you know, we've been moving away from more hardware-centric tech, infrastructure and so forth, towards software. Palantir is a very expensive stock, but there's nothing like it in the software space. It is, we believe, going to dominate the biggest part of the tech stack when it comes to AI, and that's the platform as a service part of the stack. So very excited. And again, if you think about the AI revolution, we are today where we were when it came to the internet in the early to mid 90s. So again, we've just begun. And so we have miles to go. And then, of course, the applications. Tesla, not only do we have robotaxis, but now humanoid robots. And so to give you a sense of slowly, then all at once, we certainly think with Tesla, Robotaxi is this year. I know that Elon's been saying that it was going to be just around the corner for the past 6 or 7 years, and we thought it would be sooner, but it is here. That is a huge opportunity. What's happening faster than we expected is the humanoid robot opportunity. Tesla in the public markets, certainly Figure AI, Aptronic in the private markets. We own those in our venture fund. So lots of excitement around AI.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, of course, that you thought that the autonomous implementation for Tesla might have happened by now. I mean, obviously, there have been these optimistic projections. I was looking back in 5 years ago on your website. You thought that 2024 Tesla's car sales would be 3.2 million as your bear case, and they were 1.8 million. So obviously, it's hard to project 5 years forward. Why is the world ready to pay up for many robots, actually?
So that time period is very important, Mike. Did we know about COVID? Our forecasts hinge importantly on unit growth, and everything stopped during COVID.
Yeah.
I think in terms of our forecast on EVs, we were much closer to the mark than most other analysts out there, certainly in terms of surprises relative to expectations, which drove the stock importantly. One other thing, just in terms of big ideas, I think the most underappreciated application of AI is healthcare. I think healthcare is responsible for an incredible amount of storage out there right now. Data is the name of the game. And healthcare, we've got 37 trillion cells in our body, and they're going to be sequenced as we're looking for cures. And so while robotaxis might be the biggest application short-term, $10 trillion in the whole ecosystem over the next 5 to 10 years, we think the most profound application is in healthcare, and that it will lead to curing disease. It already is.
The market seems to, whenever it does kind of get enraptured with these big themes, want to have kind of a bellwether clear play, whether that was certainly Tesla in EVs, NVIDIA in the AI infrastructure build-out. Is there something comparable in the medical applications of AI?
Well, I think you have to look at the sequencing technologies. That's where it's starting. So the Illuminas, the PacBios. But in terms of research in AI, there are a couple of names. Recursion Pharmaceuticals has just in 1 year, thanks to AI, and I think 1,500 GPUs, so very few relative to what we're seeing elsewhere, has driven the average number of hypotheses per researcher for new drugs up tenfold in just 1 year, from 20 to 200 per researchers. So we think that research and discovery is going to be impacted incredibly. And we also think that phase 1 and phase 2 drugs, which get very little love in the marketplace these days, especially phase 1 and anything preclinical, that now that AI is speeding everything up, we're going to see more value placed on those because the number of failures is going to drop and the time to market is going to accelerate. And we think cures are going to increase the value of patents, and this is not what the traditional world thinks, by anywhere from 2 to 20-fold. Because if we're curing disease, then we won't be falling off patent cliffs. And I do see Illumina getting hit today by the China announcement overnight. Illumina is the premier short-read sequencing company, and that's going to be very important in the blood tests that help us discern whether we have cancer or whether it is recurring.
Any sense of why Illumina was one of the very few companies that China decided to target?
You know, I know that the sequencing technology in China has improved quite a bit. I know they don't want to disadvantage themselves, and they want the leading edge tech. So they may feel that BGI and some of their other companies are up to speed. We do think under new management, Illumina is accelerating the pace of change, finally, again, including driving costs down. Big mistake it made, and giving China a way to catch up was just holding prices at $1,000 per genome. Now we're down to roughly $200 per genome, and we think that's ultimately going down to $1 per genome.
Cathie, when you take a position like you have with Tesla, how much is that based upon the idea that you have a guy like Elon Musk at the head of all that stuff?
Well, we have a 6-point scoring system, and the first score is management. Management, right. People, and culture need a visionary management, especially when it comes to innovation these days, because these companies need to invest aggressively, as Tesla did in 18, 19, 20, in order to capitalize on massive opportunities. And in fact, with AI, it's winner take most opportunities. So they need to stand up to more traditional investors who want their dividends, their profits, their share repurchases now. So you'll not find many of those stocks in our portfolio. You'll find stocks like Tesla.
So does it bother you that the head of Tesla seems to be spending most of his time kind of involved with the federal government? Is that a knock on your sense of the outlook for Tesla? Or do you expect Elon Musk to come back full time to running his companies?
Yeah. So as I said, the first score is management, and we look carefully at what management is doing, how management is spending its time, and how a visionary leader like Elon Musk is surrounding itself by brilliant people who want to solve very hard problems. If you had listened to Tesla's last conference call last week, you would see how focused Elon is on any pain points or bottlenecks. So he's highly focused on getting this autonomous taxi network up and running this year, clearly. He's maniacally focused, it seems to me, more than I understood before listening, on humanoid robots. We've, in our big ideas, you'll see a section on humanoid robots, and we think that humanoid robots are going to benefit small companies more than large companies, which is a big change. But as far as Elon spending time making the government more efficient, I'm actually thrilled. And there's something that people do not understand about Elon. Elon understands that we are in the midst of a massive convergence among technologies, and that AI is the biggest catalyst among the 5 major innovation platforms evolving now. So robotics, energy storage, AI, blockchain technology, and multi-omic sequencing. He understands those convergences. He's involved in 3 of them. And data is the name of the game. If you look at all of his companies, they're all spewing out different kinds of data. That's proprietary. And that's the name of the game in terms of winning all kinds of AI races out there. And of course, the government is filled with data itself. I don't think that's why he's there. He's there to make it more efficient, and we're thrilled.
Yeah, well, of course, we already have discussed whether, in fact, it's correct that he has direct access to some of this data. That's going to be, I guess, sorted out in a separate venue. Just quickly, though, Cathie, when you mention blockchain, it seems as if the latest run and wave of excitement over crypto has mostly been about owning it as an asset, and that the Trump administration is going to be more friendly in terms of allowing more products and essentially not trying to prevent people from selling it or getting involved. It's not as much about what's going to be done with the technology or creating some kind of a platform. Is that right?
I don't think so, actually. There is stablecoin legislation going through, or we think it will go through, led by Senators Lummis and Gillibrand. And I think this administration is very supportive of that legislation, including stablecoins. What's interesting about stablecoins, if you look at the transaction value on the various blockchains out there, the stable coins now account the transaction value is higher than either for Visa and MasterCard. I think many people are very surprised. Now, I want to clarify the value. The count, the number of transactions is much greater on Visa and MasterCard. But the high volume transactions are taking place on these other networks. So DeFi, and we're going to stop calling decentralized finance DeFi probably. It sounds a little defiant. It's nothing but the internet financial system. It's the layer of the internet now finally built to accommodate financial services and commerce. So I think it's already the innovation is burgeoning out there. And it's interesting to make this more familiar to people and to help them understand what this is. I heard from someone in India that they're calling it the Finternet there. Again, this is the internet, the next generation internet. So pretty excited about it.
Hey, Cathie, part of the reason that you all have done so well since the election is your big ownership in things like Bitcoin and Tesla that obviously have taken off since President Trump was elected. Elon Musk is such a unique and amazing individual. From all the companies that he's been able to create, from what he sees, kind of the focus that he has, his ability to multitask with incredible focus. He's also been incredibly good at walking a fine line with multiple administrations, whether that be in the United States and in China. It's a pretty rare talent that maybe Tim Cook is the only other person I can think of who's walked such a fine line and done it so artfully. These Chinese retaliation that we've seen this morning, obviously small companies, not things that are really going to have a big impact, companies that don't do a whole lot of business in China to begin with. If they were to get more serious, if things were to really ratchet up between the Trump administration and China, and China chose to retaliate by going after an Apple or a Tesla, would that shock you? And what would you do to either protect yourself ahead of time or as a result if that were the case?
I think China right now is very focused on a phrase called new productive forces. And that's all about innovation because they're trying to pivot from a very big problem they have, which is in the property sector. So I don't think that Xi Jinping will want to derail the momentum on innovation. And it's very interesting. I think we're surprised that when it comes to robotaxis, that China has been more forthcoming with Tesla than we expected. In our model for Tesla, we did not expect much share of the robotaxi market going to Tesla. But I think what's going on, while Baidu's Apollo is making progress and so forth, it's still rather geofenced. China wants to learn from Tesla and from Western companies altogether in all kinds of technologies how to go about and break through into this new age with, in this case, robotaxis. So I'd be very surprised. And, Elon also has another secret weapon in China. His mother, May Musk, she is beloved in China, which is another big asset.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cathie, appreciate you running through it with us. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Next on Squawk Pod, the prime number for Amazon, 9 billion. That's how many items were delivered within one day around the world in 2024. The Amazon exec in charge of Prime, Jamil Ghani, joins us next.
We've been investing for over 30 years. The entire history of the company is about, every year iteratively making the supply chain network better.
You're listening to Squawk Pod today with Becky Quick, Steve Liesman, and Mike Santoli.
Up on Becky. Q.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Amazon has released new metrics for Prime deliveries and savings. In 2024, Amazon says that it delivered 9 billion items the same or the next day around the world. Joining us right now for more on these numbers is Jamil Ghani, who is vice president of Amazon Prime. And Jamil, these are pretty impressive numbers. Why don't you dig into what this is and how it compares to where you were a year ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me this morning. We launched Prime in 2005 with a very simple promise: 1 million items available in 2 days. You fast forward 20 years, and now we're delivering to Prime members over 300 million eligible items. Of those, over tens of millions of items are available same or next day. As you said, last year there was 9 billion items available in that record speed. We think about this in two ways. It saves our members time and money. If you quantify the savings in delivery fees, that's $95 billion worldwide. For the average U.S. Prime member, that's $500 of savings. And then you almost can't put a price on the amount of time savings that they're getting as well. So we're really, really proud of the record-breaking speeds in 2024. We're only going to get faster. We've invested in 60% more same-day sites, covering 140 metros. That's particularly helpful for our everyday essentials business. This is the toilet paper, the detergent, all the things a busy family needs. We deliver over 2 billion items, 50% more than the previous year in 2024. And that just opens up more and more occasions where busy families like mine can access Prime and get what they need when they need it.
I mean, I think about how it works at my house, and there are a litany of delivery options that show up at all hours and all times. Sometimes I order something, it'll show up at 4 a.m. before I even leave to come here, which is a little creepy as I'm walking out the door. But you guys have this incredible logistics business that you have put together to make this happen. How much investment has gone into that? And how do you see that changing and developing over the next year? I guess drones are part of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been investing for over 30 years. The entire history of the company is about, every year iteratively making the supply chain network better. The big thing I would draw is over the last couple of years, we've made a major transformation in the layout of our network, moving to a regionalized network. That puts selection that households like yours and mine need closer to the customer. It doesn't change the operations in the building. So we have the same high standards for safety and kind of operational excellence in the building. But what really changes is that your package is traveling fewer miles over the road to get to your house. That means you can, leave the house with that package that the kids need for school that day or you need in the office, like you just described. We're also investing and have been investing for decades in machine learning and other AI. That allows us to make sure that we know what customers want, when they want it, where they want it, and it allows us to have perfect placement into our buildings, again, as close as possible to the customer. Last thing, you mentioned drones. That is a growing part of our business. We're just getting started, though, and that will be for the ultra-fast, really time-sensitive items. A big part of that is our pharmacy business. We're rolling out more and more selection through our pharmacy business that will be available in the same day. When you can go to the doctor and have the prescription you need at your doorstep later that afternoon, again, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out if it's worth it given the drone traffic it may put up and the panic that it causes in places like New Jersey with all those drones. Jamil, let me ask you, how many Prime members do you now have?
We have over 200 million Prime members worldwide in 24 countries.
Jamil, I want to go back to what Becky was talking about. Yesterday morning, before I came into the Squawk Box to cover crazy tariffs, I ordered coffee. By the time I got home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the coffee was there. How soon after I hit the button to pay for it did you start moving that coffee?
Almost instantaneously, virtually instantaneously.
Wait, I'm going to hit the button, and the coffee's going to start moving.
It's going to start moving. We're gonna pick it from our FC, increasingly really, really close to your home. We're going to package it. We're going to slam it, otherwise get it out on the transportation means, and then send it off to your home. We're obviously consolidating and creating route density so that we come to your household and your neighbor's household and can do that really efficiently. We may already be coming to your household that day, and that package is on its way, and then you can simply track it in the Amazon app and know exactly when it's going to arrive at your home.
And then I have one question, since you're always up and down my street. When are you going to start using electric or alternative fuel vehicles?
Well, in fact, we already are. We have the nation's largest electric vehicle fleet. We have over 20,000 electric vans on the road and orders for more. And we're rolling those out not only in the U.S., but around the world. And we're really proud of the investment we've made to advance that technology and put it to work. Those vehicles are optimized for our drivers. Not only are they electric, but they have really efficient layouts inside. And our drivers tell us that they love them.
Jamil, let's talk about tariffs and the tariffs that were recently averted by both Canada and Mexico, and then the ones that have been placed on China. We had been reporting and talking about how Amazon could be a beneficiary of part of the tariffs that would be put in place. Chinese competitors like Temu and Shein have found ways around any of these tariffs in the past because of the de minimis clause. Anything that's under $800 gets through and escapes that. President Trump closed that loophole in the tariffs that he'd been proposing most recently in that executive order he put out. And that could be something that would really help out Amazon from a competitive perspective. What's your thought on this? What's Amazon's position?
Clearly, as you've reported, it's a really dynamic situation evolving hour by hour, day by day. And so we're assessing the impact to our business closely. Our number one priority is minimizing disruption for our customers. The good thing is that we have been investing for decades in a diversified supply chain, working with vendors and sellers around the globe. And we're going to continue to do that to make sure that we minimize the disruption to our customers. We look forward to working with the administration to do exactly that. We're here to serve customers and Prime members, and we, no matter where the situation goes, we're going to focus on that. Was there hoarding ahead of the tariffs or bringing in additional? We talked to a distillery company a little bit ago, and the CEO said that, yeah, they did in fact bring in as much as they could. Yesterday, they were placing orders for mezcal to get ahead of any potential tariffs that would come in down the road. What are you all doing specifically? We're always assessing the state of inventory and the placement of that inventory, no different than we do before the holiday peak period or before Prime Day. And so that's an ongoing effort, no different than any other day. So we continue to monitor the situation as it continues to develop, and we're going to do what's necessary in order to minimize disruption for customers.
Jamil Ghani, want to thank you, Jamil, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you continue to enjoy those speeds and that coffee.
That's the podcast for today. Thank you for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorgan. Thanks to Steve Liesman and Mike Santoli for sitting in today. You can tune in every day on TV, weekday mornings at 6 Eastern, or right into your ears in this very podcast. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you like to listen. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow. Have a great day.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.